Hey everybody, we're back again with Paul Craig Roberts, a former Assistant Treasury Secretary under the Reagan administration, who back in that era pointed out welfare scams. Reagan was infamously castigated for talking about welfare queens. Well, apparently that has accelerated now in Minnesota under Governor Walz, who almost became our vice president if Kamala Harris had become president. And that's a glaring example, but this is widespread across the country. And Paul, welfare is really should be called Scamfare. Tell us all about that.
Yes. Well, Larry, rather than speak of the details of all the intricate schemes, um, it has proved to be very easy in Minnesota and particularly Minneapolis, but also in every blue state. It's very easy to defraud the welfare system. There seems to be almost no check on the ability, if people are so inclined, to defraud the system. And in Minnesota, both the state system is being defrauded, but also federal uh, programs to aid the needy and so on. For example, the federal um, program for autism uh, has been scammed dramatically in Minnesota. In the last few years, the number of private services serving autism needs grew like 700%. And the billing rate jumped 3,000%. Well, clearly, they didn't discover that many new autism cases. And so it's a situation where you can simply bill and get reimbursed, even if you're not even a company, and if you're providing those services. Um, Another example in Minnesota was the provision of meals. Uh, all of a sudden, enormous amount of billing for providing meals, and it turns out that one company who'd been billing huge sums was providing no meals. So these are just examples. That doesn't exhaust the situation.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I guess what's happening is the NGOs, non-government organizations, or whatever organization brings in the money, our tax money, and then funnels some of it to the supposed needy. The people who are heading the organizations are really the ones making all the money, correct? Our tax money goes to them, not to the needy people, supposedly needy people.
yeah, and indeed, in these cases I just mentioned, there aren't any needy people. They're phantom people. In many cases, they found that they were billing for services to made up names, people who don't exist. Um, and in Minnesota, the situation is further involved with the Somali community. Um, Many of these immigrants from third world countries are accustomed to fraud or the use of government uh, for money-making reasons. It's just the common culture. To them, it's not doing wrong. It's just what you do.
And American is such an easy picking, right? I mean,
It's an easy picking because of the social conscience
yeah.
of liberals. which comes into this in a dramatic way, which I will explain in a minute.
Yeah, you said in your article that this is based on, this interview is based on, is originally well-intentioned intentions become perverted.
Yeah.
But no, long ago, I think, the people who are in on the scam know that there's what the consequences will be. It's not unintended consequences anymore. They knowingly are part of the fraud, correct?
Well, the people doing the scamming, yeah, but yes, probably. But the people who set up the possibility of scamming, the liberals, they've never caught on yet. And so, anyhow, to get back to the Somalis, the Biden regime dumped 80,000 of them on one city, Minneapolis. And and so they just normally take to this type of behavior because it's what they're enculturated with. And so there are reports, these are verified reports of people leaving the country with briefcases full of $1 million in cash. And this is permitted as long as you declare it. You can take huge sums of money out, but if they're more than $10,000, you have to declare it. And you're permitted to. If you don't declare it, they'll confiscate it. So the Somalis know this and they declare it, and out it goes. And the uh, allegation is being made that the welfare funds in Minnesota are being siphoned off to a Somali terrorist organization abroad. So it's far from helping Americans who are in need of food or autism support or whatever.
Free
So
enterprise, free enterprise with the emphasis on free. Right.
yeah, and the Somalis are very good at it. Now, the question is, how did it get so far out of hand?
Right.
Because it is really out of hand in Minnesota. And the explanation seems to be that, and this is the explanation from the bureaucrats in the Minnesota social service system. They say that they've known about the scam. The governor, Waltz, has known about the scam. And what prevented anything from being done about it was that all of these programs that are being scammed were set up by liberals to help the genuine needy. And so the programs are associated with the needy, which in so many cases means Black people, people of color, that to move against the fraud would be portrayed by the left wing as a move against poor people, as a racist move against Blacks, and that the governor was trying to deny um, uh, necessary help to poor Black American citizens, and that the governor was just terrified of the political effects of these kinds of accusations. So he never acted against the scams. Now, some people who are even more cynical than me, and they claim uh, that this is just the excuse made up by the governor, and that he actually favored the scams because it was helping the illegal aliens that all the Democrats are totally opposed to deporting. to become more institutionalized in the society and thereby harder to get rid of because they're going to have all of the tax revenues from the society to support their position. Um, I think that may be going a bit far in the explanation, and I can certainly see that the explanation associated with these um, Minnesota um, public service bureaucracy, it would be true that it's true if Waltz moved against this, the left wing would be screaming, he's against the poor, he's against the blacks, he's racist. Um, and I think it's impossible for Democrats or anyone to stand up to those kinds of charges. It's like being charged with being an anti-Semite. If you're charged with being an anti-Semite and you're in politics, you're finished. If you're just like if you're charged with being a racist in politics, you're finished. And so that's probably the explanation of why nothing was done about the scandal. And it may well be that now that the scandal has come public, Waltz can act and that they can do something to contain it or rein it in or stop it.
Well,
So,
he's already blaming Trump. He's saying that, Trump is making a big deal out of this, that this is nothing new. But he fails to explain if it's nothing new, how come nothing was done about it? And
um,
apparently he's been subpoenaed by Congress now to testify,
yeah,
to explain himself. We'll see how that turns out or if he even shows up.
well, I don't know if they subpoenaed him yet. They've threatened him with subpoena because he refuses to deliver any information
Uh,
to the oversight committee, who are just trying to get it at this. I think Trump should just be quiet because if he politicizes it, it makes it more difficult for Waltz to do anything about it if he is inclined to do anything about it. Um, making it a political football is a way to bury the issue.
yeah.
And I think Trump would be better advised not to have turned it into a political football.
In fact, that kind of harkens back to what Reagan was criticized for when he talked about welfare queens, right? Way back in his administration, which you were part of.
Yeah, you see, he said that there were people who were getting duplicate welfare checks, and there was evidence of duplicate checks going to the same address. And of course, the liberals were so afraid it would be used to discredit their welfare system that they jumped all over Reagan. Oh, this is impossible. It can't happen. He's just making it up. He's just a grade B movie actor and all of that. So they made it a political football to just protect their achievement, their do-good achievement. And this is the trouble with the welfare system. It's why it's so easy for it to be scammed because the liberals are determined to protect it. And so the scams don't get acknowledged. Oh, that's just propaganda against poor people. That's racism. And so if they won't admit that things are being scammed, you can't fix it. Now, notice it wasn't the national media that brought the story out, and there's still not much in the national media about it. It was the local media. In Minneapolis, it was Fox 9 News. And it's very much the case that in the United States today, the only place you ever get any real reporting is in the local news stations.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, not always. but that's the only place you can find it. And of course, it depends on the issue. Some issues nobody can touch,
Yeah.
but this one apparently Fox 9 News in Minneapolis was able to get into and bring out, and so it may lead to something being done. But of course, uh, this is just a tip of the glacier.
Yeah.
The vast, there's so many examples of how all these good intentions have turned into ways to rip off the American taxpayer.
And another destructive example is what happened to the black family in the inner cities with the welfare system, where kids became fatherless because of it. Why don't you explain that a little bit, Paul?
Well, this was brought out by the Harvard professor and U.S. Senator from New York, Democrat, Daniel Patrick Moynihan.
Right.
Um, Back in the latter part of the 20th century, he was a very prominent public figure. And in the 60s, he summarized all the studies that showed that the effect of the welfare programs put in to help Black Americans had been the complete destruction of the Black family. And then the one of the worst results was fatherless young men with no one to control them, and mothers not knowing even who the fathers are, and on drugs and depressed. And he explained the mechanism of how it worked. And there are many aspects to it. I don't remember them all, but uh, basic in the whole thing was a stipulation that you couldn't get the welfare help if there was a man in the house. Now, whether this was uh, to try to protect Black working families from being subsidized by taxpayers, or whether it was an attempt to get all of the itinerant boyfriends out so that the illegitimate birth rate would go down. I don't know what the purpose of that uh, provision that
Yeah.
the family uh, couldn't get support if there was a male in the house. So the result was that real families, legitimate cohabitation, real families were broken up. And the other step in it was that um, the daughters, young girls, could get out from under mother's control and get their own apartments if they got pregnant and had a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so all the young girls wanting to be free from mother's discipline or control were getting pregnant by they didn't know who and getting their own apartments and then raising all of these illegitimate young men or giving birth, not raising them, who were raised by nobody. And this became the source of the Black youth gangs and the involvement of Black men in crime.
And the other looming question is, when they saw it wasn't working for so many years now, there was no attempt to change it. Why not?
Well, for the same reason, it would the liberals are terrified it'll discourage their welfare state that they have been building uh, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It's now 100 years old, or
Yeah.
it's 5 or 10 years from being 100 years old. The American welfare system. This is the liberals' great achievement, and they simply don't. You see, when Moynihan made this clear, it was simply ignored. And
And he was
uh,
a Democrat.
he was not only a Democrat, he was a very prominent public person, not just from being a New York senator, which in those days was very influential, but from being a respected Harvard professor.
Right.
And, he wasn't some kind of a right-wing conservative against welfare. He was just an honest, objective guy saying, hey, look, it didn't work out like we thought. What are we going to do? And the answer was nothing. Shut up. Go away. Be quiet. And so this is the whole trouble with the liberals. They've constructed a state that's failed and is increasingly failing, and that now is so susceptible to fraud that American taxpayers' dollars are carried out of the country in briefcases and dumped into terrorist hands overseas. And they still don't want to do anything about it. Um, and as I said, this was the report from the Minnesota social service bureaucracy. Now, some people claim, oh, they didn't really, it was a fake group, not a real social service bureaucracy who said this. There's no official statement from the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy denies, the bureaucratic spokesman deny it, blah, blah, blah. But it does appear that the bureaucracy is correct. They knew about it. The government knew about it, and they couldn't do anything about it because it would look like an attack on welfare programs designed to aid the poor blacks, and that the governor would be dismissed as a liberal and accused of being a racist and so on and so on.
Well,
So,
even the very term welfare now, euphemistically, is now called a social program, not a welfare program, correct?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're social programs. They're no longer welfare programs. Now, now, Larry, as I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The whole thing is so huge we couldn't discuss it in a program. But let me give one more example of the liberal good intentions. Many years ago, Ed Koch was the mayor of New York. You no doubt remember him. I remember him. And he was trying to do a good job as a mayor, and which is difficult in New York. And somehow established uh, the right of homeless to shelter. So homeless people in New York, if they were in New York, uh, were entitled to shelter, which meant the city had to provide it. And um, and so we had the beginning of the homeless industry that's fed off the New York City budget in New York. Well, now what has happened with the Obama and Biden regimes for 12 years, removing all barriers to the flooding of the country with third world immigrants. New York now has a huge number of illegals on the streets. I think the figure I used in the article is a year or two or perhaps more out of date. It was 120,000. It's probably now 150 or maybe 200,000 uh, immigrant invaders on New York streets, and they have a right to shelter. Well, where's New York City going to put them? And it would cost. So we have reports not only of hotels being leased by the city to house these people, but public schools losing their sports facilities, their auditoriums to house illegals. And and in other states, we had reports of how they were using train stations and airports to house the illegals. So here we have New York. It's already in serious budget situation. It's elected a mayor who says he's a socialist and is going to make a whole lot of more free things available. And now he's got huge numbers of illegals to house. So, and who pays for all of this? The working class. The
Correct me,
working class deserted by the Democrats.
correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but I remember Koch as being kind of a hard-nosed, practical guy, not a flaming liberal, right? And yet he enacted that program.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many hard-nosed people have been a governor of mayor of New York, but he certainly wasn't some kind of left-wing crazy. That's for certain.
Yeah.
And um,
So even he felt the political pressure back then.
yeah, you see, he didn't anticipate that decades later our borders would be thrown open
Right.
and the city would be presented with, you know, the black mayor. The recent black mayor said immigration is destroying the city. He himself said we've got to have federal help. Immigration is destroying New York City.
Yeah.
We the budget for it, and they don't. There's so much, you know. Let's put it this way, Larry. Um, Among economists for the longest time, there's been a debate about uh, public finance. And the liberals always say it serves good causes. It serves good causes. We need more of it. The deficit is not a problem because we need the money to do good purposes, and that's more important than the deficit, and so on. And what were at the time called free market economists were challenging this, saying, you know, how is the public served? Um, um, you know, as Moynihan showed, it wasn't. Not even the public that was supposed to be helped.
Yeah.
But the debate never went anywhere. And in my opinion, my approach to this is that uh, no government budget serves any public interest. The whole budget is used up by business interests who have political contacts, and they are rewarded with government contracts that eats up a lot of the budget, and then the rest of it is eaten up by the scam artist.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's no real difference between the scam artist and the businesses. When the whole mass immigration thing started materializing and exploding, there were all kinds of private businesses getting rich, buying up uh, defunct motels
Yeah.
to house the illegal entrants and setting up food distribution centers to feed them, and so on and so on. So uh, the what people don't really appreciate is that this mass immigration fueled a huge expansion in American businesses to serve with public funds, paid for by public funds.
And I'm sure
Yes.
that the politicians are getting campaign donations from those interests that are making money with this whole scam. So yeah, it goes back and forth. It's all connected.
That's right. And so the position I've taken in the economics profession is that there's no such thing as the public interest being served. There are all kinds of private interests being served, and what they don't appropriate, uh, fraudsters do. And so we have a situation where the working class, which is increasingly forced to live on a credit card, can only make minimum payments and therefore is building up a mountain of debt. They're paying for the profits of businesses, and they're paying for the scams that enable Somalis to carry off briefcases full of money and deliver to terrorists abroad. So that's what is meant by a government budget. That's
Let me get this straight, Paul. As long as they declare they have $1 million in the suitcase, it's okay. And nobody questions why they got $1 million.
that's right.
They
It's
actually declare there's a
you
million.
have to declare it.
So
If
they
you try
actually
to
declare.
walk out without declaring it, they confiscate it.
So they actually declare the full amount, $1 million in the suitcase. And they say, fine, it's been declared.
Yeah. I think $1 million in $100 bills is all you can get in a briefcase.
Or they'd be more.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So,
Now,
Paul,
of course, the liberals won't admit that this report is true. And it may not be. You know, today, the artificial intelligence can create any kind of
yeah.
evidence. And we don't know how many reports that we see everywhere are real. Um, I trust the reports because they fit. They fit the whole picture. It's not like if you've got a puzzle that these reports are some great big piece that doesn't fit the puzzle. They fit. They fit with everything we know, and and I really don't think we can say that in Minnesota the problem is due to Waltz being corrupt. I think he's just afraid of his career. And is that corrupt? Well, not in the sense of supporting the fraud. It's just that it prevents him from doing anything about it.
Paul,
And
this brings us back to the question that we usually arrive at this point. Is it too far gone to fix it? Can this be fixed, or will it just continue to lead eventually to the destruction of Western civilization and the United States of America?
yeah, well, my own fear is too far gone.
Really?
Yeah, you see,
How do you correct it? Yeah.
well, we now Americans don't know this because the media doesn't report it
Right.
because it doesn't fit. But 42 American cities now have Muslim mayors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 42 cities with Muslim mayors, and uh, like like is known, Muslims come from political situations in which corruption is normal. It's it's what you do. It's how you survive. It's why people want to have the government. The control of the government is you're controlling the corruption, and so how do you get it back in hand when to attack it? It looks like you're attacking programs for poor black people, and you're a racist.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to address the fraud because it means you're a racist. You're trying to take away things from poor black people. And so how do you get that in control? And we now have two cities in the Metro Detroit area. One of them is Dearborn. That's majority Muslim, the population.
And I think one of those suburbs of Detroit, I remember a few years back, there was a report that the Muslims were in control, mayor, city council, and all that. And they have call to Mecca 6 times a day. So the Christians have to hear the call to Mecca 6 times a day, and whereas church bells are not allowed to ring 6 times a day. I mean, that's what it's already come to.
Yeah, there's I just was writing about it this morning. It's not posted yet, but the number of cities with large uh, permanent Muslim populations in the United States is very large, and it includes many surprising cities, including Atlanta, Georgia.
Really. Your
Yeah,
hometown, your hometown.
yeah, these are secure community. They're large enough now that they're secure, and so there's no infiltration. These people have brought their culture, and they're now living their culture here. So sooner or later, it's going to affect law,
Yeah.
and and many of the things that are crimes in Anglo-Saxon law aren't crimes in Muslim law, and so and we already see this de facto, for example, in European um, countries, particularly in Scandinavia, where judges have refused to prosecute rapists if they're Muslim because they say it's just a cultural value.
Part of their culture. Yeah. We have to accept their culture. They don't assimilate as ours. There was a
Yeah.
case a few years ago, I forget exactly where it was, but an Indian couple, it was an honor killing of their own daughter because she was dating a non-Indian boyfriend. And so in that culture, among that part of India where they came from, honor killings were not only accepted, but they were expected when the daughters strayed from the flock. And
Yeah.
they were prosecuted for it. Now, that was a few years ago, but in the future, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, you see, polygamy is also permitted. Um, so you can have as many wives as you can afford. So if polygamy takes hold, then they'll have to stop prosecuting Mormons
Yeah.
who want to exercise polygamy in keeping with their teachings. And so you can see that the whole culture is subject to falling apart, and that when you have um, viable, unenculturated communities in so many of American major cities, you're creating a Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
And a Tower of Babel hasn't unity. It has a common purpose. And so a nation no longer exists.
Yeah.
A Tower of Babel is not a nation and cannot be. And the same thing is happening all over the Western world. And so far, Larry, we're only talking about the Muslims. Now, none of this is meant to be against the Muslims. It's just a description of what's happening to the United States. We have the same thing with the Hispanic communities. There are even more established Hispanic communities. And notice, Spanish is becoming an official American language. You can't call any company, any service provider, without listening to the robot
Yeah.
in English and Spanish.
Yeah. Press one if
So
you want Spanish, press two if you want English. Yeah. Yeah.
all of American business now has to be able to respond in Spanish.
And multiculturalism historically has been the case where it's never worked. The cohesion falls apart. And as you say, at Tower of Babel, you can't have a nation. It's not unified.
Oh, look at Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
So this is why I think it's gone it's gone too far. And if you look at the student bodies of some of our universities, they almost, I mean, the percentage of foreigners is extremely high.
Yeah.
And some of them have come over to be educated here, but they don't go back, or many of them don't go back. Um, I was noticing at Oxford, I attended Oxford University in England in the early to mid 1960s, and it was a British university. Today, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the student body is foreign.
And closer to home, the Atlanta that you grew up in is no longer what you remember.
Oh no, there's no, there's nothing comparable. Um, so, and this is not just change. Oh, a conservative doesn't accept change. No, this is this this is something totally different. This is a self-inflicted civilizational erasure. We are erasing ourselves with our own policies. And most of these policies were put in with good intentions by liberals who didn't think very clearly. And the result has been to further destroy the country by destroying the Black family. When I was growing up in Atlanta, the, the, there wasn't any uh, situation where there were Black kids without fathers. The Black families were intact. The people behaved the same way as the whites. Um, the whole nature of relations is totally different than today. There's absolutely no hostility between the races, no fear. There was no special crime associated with blacks. Um, Almost any middle class home had black help. They were in the house. They raised the kids.
Yeah.
They prepared meals. You trusted them with the weekly budget. They didn't put it in the pocket and disappear.
Yeah.
They,
What
they weren't any different. They weren't any different than us.
the liberals would say, of course, that they were subservient, so that
Yeah.
they made efforts to change that, but what happened, it fell apart. It became worse. Anyway, Paul, we got to wrap this up for now. But this leads us up to promote our next encounter together. Our next podcast will be on the camp of the saints, how that was predictive of what's happening now, not only in Europe, but in the United States, where it's something that started out with mass immigration, changed the culture, which became, it fell apart and became a different entity. So that's next. Paul Craig Roberts, thanks very much for being with us. And we'll be talking again soon about the camp of the saints. Thanks, Paul.
I look forward to it, Larry.